Hey, it is back to school time, and just like my normal kids, my daughter, who's severely handicapped, is going to be getting ready to go back to school. And so I wanted to share some things that we are doing right now. So there's lots of things that happen when it comes to preparing a severely handicapped kid to go back to school. Just a side note real quick, I am not a doctor or medical professional. I am a mom who is just learning as I go, as I take care of my daughter. So these are just some things that we're doing right now to get Everly ready to go to school. Everly's severely handicapped. She has something called Frizzle. It's a rare genetic disorder. And she is unable to hold her head up. She's unable to sit, and she's unable to walk. It affects her motor muscular system, and she has to be in a wheelchair or in other equipment to support her. So she's a high needs, high risk kid, and she requires a lot of support if she's gonna go do anything outside of the home, as well as in the home. We have nursing care that's allotted for 24/7. We obviously are in a nursing shortage like everybody else and don't have that much support, but we're thankful for what we got. And so we have nurses that go to school with Everly and are also here at the home helping too. So one of the big things I wanted to talk about was a communications plan. So we learned early on last year that we needed to create our own specific communications plan. This is tailored specifically for the teachers and or their support staff, so meaning like paraprofessionals, as well as the nurses, as well as me, the parent, and my husband. And so we created a specific communications plan to support Everly. And how this works is the main idea is that we have specific words that we're to use that indicate where we are in evaluating her health. And when we use these specific words, everyone can understand what they mean. And so there's kind of 4 categories. The first one is baseline healthy. That's the first one. The next level is concern. So we're going up in levels. So first is baseline healthy. Next is concern. The one above that is alarm. And then last one is emergency. So those are the 4 categories and words that we're using when we're talking about Everly's health when it comes to being at school and interacting with teachers, paraprofessionals, nurses, and us, the parents. These are the words that we're going to go to when we're communicating back and forth. So typically this will happen the most between the nurse and the teacher or the paraprofessional. So both sides are allowed to use this. The nurse is allowed to use the word to communicate to the teacher or paraprofessional, this is what level I'm at, or this is what I'm observing. Likewise, the teacher or paraprofessional can do the same thing. They can pick a word and say where they're at on the evaluation of Everly's health. And so each word then has the next kind of column over is if it requires action or not. So baseline healthy requires no action. The concern level, so the next one up, is the action is to just monitor the situation, to observe if it's escalating or de-escalating. The third level, alarm, that absolutely requires action, and we'll get into more specifics of that. It requires action, however, it's not an emergency. And then the top level is obviously emergency. That requires action, but it's immediate and it's critical. So then the next kind of column I go over is the details to that. So what does each one of those that mean specifically for our daughter Everly? And so baseline healthy just means she's healthy. Her vitals are all good. Concern, that next level, the details with that are that we're starting to notice anything outside of her normal health. We're going to watch it really closely. We're going to just really pay attention to what's going on with her and see if it escalates or de-escalates. Alarm, the details with that is that a situation has escalated from concern. There's action required to help de-escalate the situation. We're to monitor for continued escalation of the situation or health situation. And then that level, alarm, is when we consider contacting the parent to let me know if I need to come pick Everly up from school early. And then when we get to the top level emergency, the details with that is it's an emergency situation. So then the last column I have are very, very specific examples tailored to Everly. So baseline healthy, again, vital, all of her vitals are normal. So that would be in the examples of healthy baseline. The next level up of concern, her examples are, we're starting to see eye flutters for her. Everly's genetic disorder has includes epilepsy, and so eye flutters usually are starting to show us that she's having increased brain activity that could be building to a larger tonic-clonic seizure. And so we're paying attention anytime she has eye flutters or she's staring off. Another example for Everly of concern that we're going to just watch closely is if her face is starting to get flushed. So this could be that she's starting to get a little overheated. Everly wears a body brace, as well as her wheelchair is just hot, so she can easily get a little overheated. So if her face is getting flushed, we're going to watch it and we're going to see if it's getting worse or not. Another aspect for Everly is her airway. And so if we start hearing mucus pooling in the back of her throat or starting to stick in her throat, then we're going to pay attention to what's going on with her secretions, whether it's nasal or oral secretions that she's having. So we're watching those to see if they're escalating or de-escalating. Another area for Everly that's specific to her is if she starts to tense up. So she has very specific presentations where she starts to tense, and that can be she starts to whimper a little bit. She brings her arms up into a specific tonal pattern, and she starts to whimper, or her face starts to get a little red. So we start to watch if she's seeming a little tense. Her leg will also kind of come up a little bit in the front. So we're going to watch that to see if it's getting worse or if it's starting to calm down. And then basically anything not her normal that needs monitoring of her symptoms. So this could also be like taking her temperature, and if we start to see that like her body temp is going up, or any other kind of out of the normal things that we're starting to notice. Alarm, the examples for alarm are specifically, again, alarm is the level where we take action. So alarm is airway clearance. We're going to start suctioning. If the pooling in her throat, if she hasn't swallowed it, then we're going to start suctioning her throat to clear her airway. We're going to use saline to rinse her nose and her throat if there's mucus sticking. If there's puking involved, that would be at the alarm level, but not the emergency level for Everly. So that's kind of big indication for the teacher is knowing in advance when Everly starts to puke, it's not an emergency, it's an alarming situation that requires action by the nurse to handle it. So she's going to be doing airway clearance. Other things, like if Everly's starting to overheat, then the action would be to remove her from her wheelchair and to potentially take off her body brace as well as articles of clothing to get her cooled down, as well as just adding a fan to cool her off. If she's starting to tense up because of back pain or hip pain, then again, we're going to take her out of her chair and then we're going to do stretching and movements and get her in a comfortable position where she can relax. And then also with alarm, examples would be then the nurse communicating with the parent to determine if we're going to take her home. So if it's something that they take action and they're able to get it under control and we determine Everly doesn't need to come home, then she can stay at school, or I will come and get her early if we think it would benefit her to come home and finish handling the situation at home. And then the last level is emergency. So specifically for Everly, this would be if she's having a seizure, this would be an emergency for her where she would require her action of her rescue med. This also would, another example of an emergency is if Everly's oxygen were to start dropping. And I put specifics for what levels for her would indicate an emergency. This would also include her heart rate. If her heart rate started escalating, again, we have specific numbers that we can base off to say this is an emergency. If her breathing were to become labored or rapid, this is an emergency where we need to get her home and get her on her vent. And then last, her airway, if it's not able to get cleared, or if her oxygen is dropping or any of her vitals are dropping, then these are all emergency situations where the school or the nurse would reach out to both emergency services as well as the parent. So I think this is going to show up backwards when I show it on the picture because I'm shooting backwards. But this is our chart that we used. We actually, at the beginning of the year, have a meeting with all of the staff that are going to be working with our daughter, the whole team. So it's like, I think it was like above 10 people in a room. But they're all in the room together. We talk through all the specifics of Everly. So the whole team for the year knows all about her. We talk about her communication plan as well as her daily schedule. The nurses all meet the staff before school starts so everyone knows each other, and we're all on the same page. So this is just a little insight into what we've been doing to get ready for Everly to go to school, and it's been hugely helpful. We know that the teachers and staff and paraprofessionals and special education teachers have loved this. They were so excited when I brought this and showed it to them because they felt confident to be able to communicate with the nurse and vice versa, the nurse to communicate with them. So if the paraprofessional that's working with Everly starts to see eye flutter, she can say, hey, I'm starting to have some concern. Everly's doing eye flutters. So those key words. Or Everly is starting to get really, really tense and she's screaming and crying. She's probably having a back spasm. I'm alarmed. We need to take action, get her out of the seat and get her in a position. Or Everly's oxygen has dropped radically. Her airway is seeming like it's not clear. This is an emergency. So using those keywords, concern, alarm, emergency. And where this kind of came about, the whole reason why I created this was because we did have a situation where a teacher was thinking something was an emergency and the nurse knew it was not an emergency, and the two of them were confused. The communication was not clear, and neither of them, I would say, are wrong. They both did a great job. They were both trying their best to care for Everly. We just did not have a communication plan in place that made that communication clear and easy. So the teacher thought Everly was starting to have a seizure, but it was actually a back spasm. And so the teacher was thinking we needed to call 911 and that we needed to give her a rescue med. The nurse, who had actually seen video footage of Everly's back tensing and already had experienced it and knew exactly how Everly presents for her back tensing, knew specifically it was not a seizure. And so she was saying, no, this is not an emergency. So neither of them were wrong. They were both trying their best to care for her. And thankfully, it was a situation where it wasn't an emergency and she was safe and taken care of. But we realized in that moment, we needed to clarify as the parents, what are the things and risks that could potentially happen at school and how to communicate between the teacher and the nurse. So we now have it all spelled out. It's really clear. We also, another thing we do to help teachers and paraprofessionals understand Everly is we'll show them video footage of Everly having a seizure. We'll show them video footage of Everly having a back spasm. We'll show them video footage of Everly having eye flutters so that before they ever interact with Everly, they know exactly what things look like. We describe the specific positions that pertain to each one of those situations for her body so that they are equipped to understand and evaluate Everly's health in the moment. So I hope this is helpful. Again, I'm not a professional, and this is just what we found, and this is what we're doing for Everly. And we found it to work really well. So a lot of work happening at the beginning of the year, but it's all worth it because Everly's loving school, and we know that she's safe and cared for by all the different professionals that are with her. Thanks.